We start with the coronavirus situation here in Japan. Prime Minister Suga Yoshihide says he may extend the state of emergency for the greater Tokyo area.
I am thinking that we may need to extend the state of emergency by about 2 weeks to protect people's lives and livelihoods.
The emergency decree is due to expire on Sunday in Tokyo, Kanagawa, Saitama, and Chiba. Some governors earlier expressed reservations about ending it, saying infection numbers haven't fallen far enough. The capital reported over 300 new cases on Wednesday. That's a daily jump of more than 100 cases compared to the previous Wednesday. Overall, the number of new cases has been declining, but the rate has been slowing. People in the capital have had mixed reactions.
Extended again? That's my honest feeling, but there is no other choice. The daily cases have not decreased to the target level. We have to be patient for 2 more weeks, hoping things will be better.
I see several shops in Shibuya have given up their businesses, so I want the state of emergency to be lifted as soon as possible. I guess the 2-week extension will not have much impact on the situation.
The possibility of an extension shocked this bar manager who's opening a new establishment on Monday, the day after the declaration is currently set to end. He's just hired 6 new staff members.
The response of the government is too slow. I can't wait any longer, as the opening is just 5 days away.
Prime Minister Suga is expected to make a final decision later this week after consulting governors and health experts. The World Health Organization says the latest weekly total of new coronavirus cases worldwide increased after declining for 6 straight weeks. The WHO says nearly 2.7 million new cases worldwide were recorded between February 22nd to the 28th. That figure was up 7% from the previous week. The rise was driven mainly by increases in the Americas and Europe. The United States had the highest number of new cases, but it saw a 2% decrease from the previous week. India had the second highest. Its weekly figure jumped by 21%. Brazil saw an 18% increase. The WHO cited possible reasons for the rebound, including the spread of more variants. It also mentioned relaxation of public health and social restrictions and the public's fatigue in adhering to anti-infection measures. The report also shows more than 63,000 people died last week. That was down 6% from a week earlier. The coronavirus variant first identified in Britain was reported in 106 countries and territories, 5 more than the previous week. The variant discovered in South Africa was seen in 56 locations, also up by 5. The strain detected in Brazil was confirmed in 29 countries and territories, unchanged from the previous week. Protesters took to the streets across Myanmar again on Wednesday to oppose last month's military coup. At least 7 people were reportedly shot dead. The Association of Southeast Asian Nations held an emergency meeting on Tuesday, but the group's foreign ministers failed to agree on steps to resolve the crisis. Myanmar's military-appointed Foreign Minister Wuna Maung Lwin attended the online meeting. He reportedly claimed the military has acted legitimately, pointing to fraud in last year's general election. Some countries, including Malaysia and Singapore, called for the release of Aung San Suu Kyi and other detainees. The chairman's statement after the meeting expressed concern and called for restraint, but there were no concrete measures to break the deadlock. Some countries are reluctant to get involved because the organization has a policy of not interfering in the internal affairs of member states. Indonesia's foreign minister recognized that policy, but also urged Myanmar to respect democracy.
upholding and implementing values of democracy, respect of human rights, good governance, rule of law, and constitutional government are equally important.
A Bangkok-based Southeast Asia analyst said the organization should remain engaged with Myanmar despite their differences.
ASEAN has to open rooms for Myanmar and international community and for itself and members to have a forum and to find a proper solution to solve the problem.
The analyst says ASEAN should also work with concerned parties outside the region, including Japan and China. The U.S. has imposed sanctions on Myanmar military officials, and the EU is considering its own penalties. Meanwhile, Myanmar's ambassador to the United Nations has sent a letter to the world body claiming he remains the legitimate representative of his country amid reports that he's been fired. At a UN General Assembly meeting on Friday, Cho Mo-tung condemned his country's military for staging the coup. He called on the international community to use any means necessary to reverse the coup. Myanmar state-run television reported later that the ambassador had been fired for betraying his country. A UN spokesperson revealed that Myanmar's foreign ministry said the country had appointed the current deputy ambassador to temporarily fill the role. In the letter dated Monday, Cho Mo-tung said, "The perpetrators of the unlawful coup against the democratic government of Myanmar have no authority to countermand the legitimate authority of the president of my country." He claimed he remains Myanmar's permanent representative to the United Nations.
We continue to stand with the people of Burma. We continue to work with the international community.
A U.S. State Department spokesperson said the U.S. government has commended the bravery shown by Cho Mo-tung. He said the government understands that he remains in his position. Turning to the Tokyo Olympics and Paralympics. 5 main parties involved in the Games have agreed to decide this month whether to allow spectators from overseas. The 5 include heads of the organizing committee and the International Olympic Committee and the Tokyo governor. They met online on Wednesday and reached this conclusion. After the meeting, the organizing committee's president told reporters that the final decision will be based on several key factors.
We agreed to make a decision about spectators from overseas by the end of March, taking into account the situation of the coronavirus infection at home and abroad, preventative measures, and expert scientific knowledge. Specifically, I personally think we would like to make a decision by March 25th, when the torch relay will begin.
They plan to also decide next month on the number of spectators. The Games are slated to kick off in just under 5 months. Separately, the organizing committee has added 12 more women to its executive board. The move comes in the wake of a scandal involving former chief Mori Yoshiro, who resigned after making demeaning remarks about women.
We added women and the ratio has risen, but I don't think we are finished. We are now focused on what we should do next.
Previously, only 7 board seats were filled by women, but the new additions mean that women now comprise just over 40% of the board. Among the new members is Takahashi Naoko, a marathon runner who won gold at the Sydney Games. A Paralympian, as well as university professors and an entrepreneur, were also added. Japan's Maritime Self-Defense Force and Coast Guard have held a joint drill off southwestern Japan, focusing on how to respond to suspicious ships. It was apparently a demonstration to warn Chinese vessels navigating Japan's waters. The exercise held off Kyushu on Wednesday involved a destroyer, a missile boat, and 2 helicopters from the MSDF as well as 2 Coast Guard patrol ships. It was the first time one of the MSDF destroyers took part in the annual drill in 8 years.
Our cooperation with the Coast Guard is becoming more important given the current situation in the East China Sea.
Observers say the MSDF aims to show its strengthening cooperation with the Coast Guard, as Chinese government vessels have frequently been spotted navigating Japan's territorial waters off the Senkaku Islands in the East China Sea. Japan controls the islands. China and Taiwan claim them. The Japanese government maintains that the islands are an inherent part of Japan's territory. A tropical cyclone has been impacting northeastern Australia with crop damage and flooding. Our meteorologist Sayaka Mori has the latest.
A cyclone called the Niran has been bringing heavy rain and strong winds to the Cape York Peninsula. It has caused very severe conditions, including crop damage and also flooding across the Queensland area. The system will likely move away from the continent, so that's at least good news, but this is a slow mover. So stormy conditions will likely prolong into Thursday in the north. Meanwhile, this storm will likely pull away from the continent, but instead it's projected to head towards New Caledonia into Saturday. Meanwhile, Japan saw calmer conditions on Wednesday, but temperatures were much colder than average for this time of year, and temperatures will remain up and down into next week. It's going to be more like April in Tokyo on Friday and Saturday, and then January conditions will return on Sunday. Kanazawa, which saw 22 degrees on Tuesday, will likely see 9 degrees on Sunday, so be careful of a temperature change. Meanwhile, across Europe, very warm conditions still continue. Across many places of Europe, warm southerly winds sent some dust from the Sahara to Western Europe, including France and parts of the UK. Now, this cold front will be ushering in cold air from the north and is expected to head down towards the south into the weekend, so temperatures are starting to cool down in the northern areas. 3 degrees in Stockholm, and then going into the single digits in Berlin and Warsaw on Thursday. Now, before we go, I want to talk about a new world record. David Venko broke a world record in the Czech Republic last week. The free diver swam only in his swimsuit through the freezing water for almost 81 meters. The ice was 30 centimeters thick. While official confirmation will still take a few more weeks, the diver felt confident of setting the record. Congratulations. That's it from me. Have a nice day.
The UN says 38 people have been killed in Myanmar in the worst day of violence since protests began against the military coup. Witnesses say soldiers fired on protesters without warning. Germany's right-wing opposition party, the AfD, says it will challenge a reported decision by the country's domestic intelligence agency to designate the party as a suspected extremist group. Buckingham Palace says it's concerned by allegations that Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex, bullied staff when she was living in Britain. It says its HR team will look into the circumstances surrounding the claims. And the Israeli Prime Minister has denounced the decision to open a formal investigation into alleged war crimes in the Palestinian territories. Benjamin Netanyahu says the ICC's move is pure anti-Semitism. The investigation was welcomed by the Palestinian Authority.